if it works for you and if your life is better. And what I'll add to that, the flip side is, if you're struggling with something that you can't find a solution to, I would really encourage you to think outside the box and be open to maybe some things that are more on the intuitive level or more on the non-traditional level. Same for me. That's how I healed myself.
Yeah.
Through not looking at like just the traditional protocols, but turning inward, listening in, feeling like, how does my body respond to this, that, or the other on an intuitive level? What's my body telling me?
Okay, so I want to start at the beginning of your fitness journey. Let's start there. Tell me about what got you into this.
Oh gosh. Well, that goes so far back. And if we want to run the risk of telling my whole life story, I'll make it as short as possible because I think it's a great story. So, when I was a youngster, I would say elementary school, my best friend at the time was a little overweight. And her mom basically forced her to go take dance aerobics classes at the local YMCA. And she didn't want to go alone. So she invited me to tag along. And this was the early 80s to age myself. But this was the early 80s, which was like the heyday of spandex and dance aerobics and leg warmers and bandanas and pink, latex and all of that. It was the best. And I just fell in love. Like it was like I came alive going to these dance aerobics classes. And that started it, right? That really just started just a real visceral love of something that I didn't really have anyplace else in my life as a youngster. So that was the beginning of the journey. And something that you and I share is a history of symptoms of depression and anxiety. And as I got into adulthood and continued my journey in fitness, I got a degree in exercise physiology and nutrition. I went to college for it. I came out of college and worked at a very prestigious place in New York City. And many, many years later, I look back and I realized that I think that was my antidepressant as a child. And I didn't know that at the time. It just was like, I finally felt happy from something. And it was later on that I was like, oh, it's just because I probably was depressed as an adolescent. And so that was really the start of it. And it's always been truly following my bliss. And just, I didn't know anything else that I loved as much as I do and did in terms of not just fitness, but really like the physical body experience in the world. Biology, health, spirit, physical energy, all of that, as well as anatomy and physiology in general, just was something I've just always really been nerdy passionate about. And so it stuck. And here we are now, a lot of years later.
Well, you have probably seen a lot of fads and trends.
Pretty much all of them.
So you started in dance aerobics as a kid, right? Tell me about, like, did you play sports? What was your journey with the type of movement you were doing?
So I did play sports, almost every single sport, but I was never really good at it. And the only thing that really stuck for me was cheerleading, which makes a lot of sense, right? Because it is dance, it's music. And I think that like the physical movement, which is, I guess, expressive, if you will. I did take dance classes, and cheerleading was the only thing that really, really spoke to me. So I was a track athlete, definitely a runner for a lot of years. And so sports played a part, but I'm like the least athletic fitness person I think that you probably would ever know. And I'm okay with that. I don't know much about sports. And it really is just about human performance for me. And as I said, as I've gotten older, it really more so is about human performance. And I'm not just talking how fast you can run a mile or if you can deadlift your body weight or not. It's really, how do I perform in all areas of my life? My brain acuity, my emotions, my creativity, my time management, my attention, all of that is related to your performance. And I very much believe that a huge part of who we are and how we walk through the world has a lot to do with our biology, our physiology and our ecology in our physical body. Like that impacts your brain neurotransmitters, your personality, how often you're happy, how often you're blue, whether you're pessimistic or, negative or positive or negative, whatever it may be. And so it really influences, like I said, who we are and how we are. And I think that has become my real passion now, especially for women. So the majority of my career, I would say about half of my career, I started as a personal trainer, and I was happy with the clients that would come to me. So I would say probably 60 to 70% of my clientele historically was men, and I loved training men. And then as I matured and as I got older as a woman and really started to understand the unique challenges of women in this world, I decided to stop working with men 100% and focus all of my information, my methodologies, my practices, my tips, tools, and resources specifically for women, because we are so uniquely different than men. And again, it's like we share a lot in common, but still the struggles we have are so unique.
Yeah.
And it's the one through line, I believe, that I can help with people. I think psychology is such a intangible art to me.
For sure.
And yet your VO2 max is something I can measure and I can make better. Your leg strength is something I can measure and I can make better. And your body composition is something I can improve. And I know from research and science that if I help you improve your body composition to a certain place, you're going to perform holistically better.
100%. Well, and I mean, let's be honest, people also want to aesthetically feel confident in themselves.
Absolutely.
Like that's makes a huge difference on our energy.
Yeah.
Right. I'm curious, like being a woman, right? And have you always trained like in a similar way, or was there a journey to that of you figuring out what worked for you and what didn't? What did that look like?
That's such a good question and a very important question. So after I received my degree in exercise physiology and nutrition, I went to the Pennsylvania State University. I moved to New York City and I got a very illustrious job as a trainer working with a lot of A-list celebrities. And this was the mid-90s. And believe it or not, this was before the internet. If you can even imagine, which I don't. When were you born?
I was born in 95.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there was a time before the internet.
I know. Well, I think about when I was little, and my dad has always been really into lifting weights, and in our we had a back room where he had some weights and stuff, and like a pull-up bar when he couldn't go to the gym, and they were just. The shelves were lined with books from like Arnold and how to bodybuild. And so he would like walk me through these books. I'm like, that's like how so people neat. Would learn.
Yes,
like through
exactly.
books.
Through books, right? Now that we're in this modern day and age, we realize how limited books are.
Yeah.
Right? That means you had to find a book at a bookstore. There was no Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And how limited shelf space is. Maybe there were 5 or 10 fitness books that your dad could even buy.
Yeah.
And that's my point. So when I came into the fitness industry, it was almost fringe and there was no internet. All we knew were the books that we had in college. And when I graduated, there were very few universities that had formalized 4-year degrees, accredited programs in exercise physiology. Now there's a lot of them. So for my own health and fitness journey, in many ways was very separate to the philosophies I used to train my clients. I was training my clients based on what I learned in college and what the books told us to do, again, which was very limited because we didn't have the internet. And it was very much it still is a male-dominated discipline. I think that female voices and female experts and even women-based research, thankfully, is becoming more common. But even as recent as 5 to 10 years ago, the vast majority of research is college-age men or elderly men. Not enough research on women or by women.
Yeah.
And so everything I learned, in the early part of my career really was like bro science.
Mm-hmm.
And we did what they said you should be doing to improve your fitness. And I think even back then, a lot of the experts at the time were very siloed and didn't know what real fitness is. Mm-hmm. So to put a long story longer, I struggled for 10 or 15 years because I was doing it all wrong for the female body. Yeah. And I passionately feel that training the female physical body is a completely different science than training the male body. And I know there's probably men out there that might roll their eyes at me, and that's okay. But because of who we are emotionally, psychologically, hormonally, all of those things, training a woman is very different, and changing your body is very different than changing a man's who has a completely different hormonal profile. So I really struggled until 40. Until 40, I figured it out. And at that point, obviously, there was more outside information, more voices, more thought leadership in fitness and nutrition and health. I had gotten a lot more experience at that point. I had, maybe 20 years of experience in the industry. And so I was able to figure it out. And the biggest change that changed everything was, up until then, it was high intensity and low carb. Mm-hmm. And that was the whole problem. That was the whole problem. And as soon as I said to myself, I've been doing it this way for 20 years. It is not working. What if I completely flipped the script and did the opposite? And that's when I shot my carbs up and started losing body fat and performing better, and brought my volume and my intensity of exercise way down. And wouldn't you know it, my body changed massively between the age of 40 and 45. I was in my best shape ever between 40 and 45, the age when a lot of women think that it all goes downhill, right? Yeah. It doesn't. But it was because I really had to change my approach.
Yeah. Okay, just so you know, this is my favorite conversation. Okay. I love this conversation. And to this day, most of the people even talking about this are men. As somebody who is looks into this, if you Google search, should women be trained differently than men? All the articles that come up are written by men.
Great.
Right? And that has to change. Yeah. Because, and I think, okay, it's, when it comes to people talking about fitness, for me, I'm has this person actually worked with people, or are they just reading research? Because there's a lot of people that are just doing that and spouting out, well, it's the same. And I'm until you've actually worked with X amount of clients, you don't know. It's a very humbling experience. And I don't do fitness, but I know for myself working with clients, until you've worked with a number of people, you have so many examples of just how individual people are, and you can't go off of just what you read in a book. You have to go off of what works.
Well, and you also can't go off of what works for you. Yeah. That's what I see 100%. In the fitness industry is these genetically gifted people, men and women, who also may have found what works beautifully for their body, but that does not mean it works for another person's body. So that is one of the things I talk about so much is when you are seeking out the voices you listen to in any industry, really, but especially in fitness, nutrition, health, and wellness, it is so important. Are they legitimately certified and educated? How long have they been in practice? And have they actually worked with other people? Yeah. Not only had transformations for themselves. And we see this so much in the fitness industry. And I see it with a lot of women in the fitness industry where they have incredibly beautiful bodies. And I think it's natural for us to want to follow someone who has demonstrated a possibility for, the physical female form. But that doesn't mean their methodology will work for your body, and or they even know how to coach and guide you instead of just sell you a program. Yeah. So I am super passionate about that.
Well, and I think, nowadays in the TikTok era and the social media era, there's a lot of, just saying it how it is, there's a lot of, 23-year-old young women who have great bodies genetically, nothing's happened with their hormones yet. And they're doing something that works for them, but also probably a lot of things would work for them at that point. And they're selling these programs. And I think, I grew up, like, when I was in college was when Kayla Itsines was big.
Oh,
and so
that's who I was thinking of, and I didn't want to say it, so thank you.
Well,
she's just skinny.
And her programs have changed a lot over the years, I think. But I'm just from that perspective, and I think that it was actually such a good program to get people to start doing like squats and lunges, but I went through this whole generation of all of us got so burnt out and our adrenals were destroyed because we were doing HIIT workouts 5 days a week and not eating enough food. And I just feel like everybody who's my age, because that was the only program. Like right then was when the internet was starting to push these fitness influencers. Instagram had just kind of gotten big. And so there wasn't that much out there. It's not like today where there's so many choices and people are getting confused. Yeah. It was like, that was the only option. So everybody bought that and we all destroyed our adrenals.
Yeah.
And that set off a lot of autoimmune issues for people. And so it's just
gut
like,
issues.
Everyone's dealing with the same thing. So it's just like really funny for like to be in that generation. I think the lower intensity conversation is a lot more relevant now, which is great. But I mean, I think there's a lot of nuances to, this, like to training the female body. I can speak from my own experience of like just things with my own body that I've noticed. And there's like with the hormones, if you have autoimmune, I think as somebody with that, it's a whole other ball game.
It is.
Right. Like for me, I just turned 30 and like my hormones are different. And then, like, okay, once I get 40, 50s, like your hormones are changing and then your hormones are changing throughout the month. And there's just so many different things you have to account for. And I also think body type, like I'm curious what you think about this conversation of can women get bulky? What's your perspective?
Great conversation. And it can go either way.
Yeah.
And here's what I would say.
Yeah.
I think it's very important to honor and acknowledge the few women that are out there who do get bulky.
Mm-hmm.
We have to define bulky, right? I think that's really important. But there are women that build muscle easily. I think it would be, anti-feminist to say women can't build muscle.
Yeah.
That's not true. There are women that are able to build muscle more easily than other women. And I want to honor the woman who is like, I bulk up when I look at a dumbbell because they are out there. Mm. And in my now 30-some years of working with women, I can count them on one hand.
Mm-hmm.
They're so few and far between.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I would say is let's have a conversation about what bulky is because your definition might be different than mine.
Mm-hmm.
The chance that you're going to get bulky by accident is almost non-existent.
Mm.
If a woman really wants to get an athletic physique and really build muscle, it's intentional.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to happen by accident. And like I said, it's sort of like, what's your definition? So I had a client, she's one of those people on the one hand. And I just trained her maybe 5 years ago. And she just has a gorgeous body. She has incredible genetics, and she also has incredible habits and practices.
Mm-hmm.
And literally, I could go, and she would build muscle.
Yeah.
And I've never seen anything like it. She would build muscle with 5-pound dumbbells.
Yeah.
And so when I saw that, and she was getting ready for her wedding, and she gained muscle very quickly. I thought she looked amazing, and I would have given anything to have her body. I think most women would have coveted what she had developed, but it wasn't her preference. And she got very upset, and she's like, I am way too bulky. I'm freaking out. My wedding dress, I'm going to look too athletic. We need to take some muscle off of me. Mm. And it was the first time in my whole career where I was like, this is really a thing, and I have to honor that. Because every time she turns around, she hears a female expert or a male expert say, women can't get bulky. And so I think that, it's a nuanced conversation.
Mm-hmm. But
I will say to the woman who doesn't want more muscle than the muscle she wants, it won't happen by accident.
Mm-hmm.
And for the woman who does want muscle, you're going to have to work very hard to actually build a significant amount of muscle. And so in the past handful of years, what I've started doing to really get granular data on people, but specifically my customers. When women come to me for coaching, I make them get a DEXA body composition scan so that we've got
real
legitimate truth on your body composition. They get one when they come to me. They get one when they're done working with me, so that I have data that shows you just gained 5 pounds of muscle. Some women are terrified when they hear that, but that 5 pounds of muscle actually made you smaller. It puts you into a smaller sized clothing. It makes you healthier. You look better. And oh, by the way, the scale didn't change, or it may have even gone down. And you added 5 pounds of muscle. So I think a lot of women are like, oh my gosh, 5 pounds of muscle, I'm going to look like a man. You have to remember that's distributed over 600 and some muscles, right? And so it's a tricky conversation, you know? So when someone's like, I don't want to get bulky, and I'm like, well, first define bulky for me.
Yeah.
And then let me ask a few questions to determine your potential for building muscle. And so I've cultivated and created really a specific set of questions so that I'm able to figure out very quickly your potential for actually building muscle. Because if it's easy for you to build muscle, I'm going to coach you differently than if it's really like it's so hard for me to build muscle. So my training protocol and my nutrition protocol is actually quite different than someone who does build muscle very easily. So I actually created an assessment around this so that people can at least come in and know, okay, am I in position to build muscle appropriately, or are my habits not supporting the building of muscle to get the muscle that I actually want, right?
Yeah, and I think it's so helpful to have someone who is an expert in it tell you what's actually going on, because I think sometimes people think that, I mean, I think the conversation around as trainers, people just honoring like the look people want and how they want to feel is important, because I think that's missing, I think, a lot in the more like male focused perspective, because I think there's a lot of women that they're going more for a certain look and you don't have the language for it, right? And so in the bulky conversation, I like to just watch the comments, and for a woman who doesn't know much about it, she might feel like she has too much muscle, and really it's just too much fat on top of the muscle, right? Like, or it's just a lot of inflammation. Yeah. And so the muscle isn't even the issue, right? But it's like if the inflammation went down and like the fat was also on top, now you're getting the look you want. So, but if people who aren't experts don't have the language and they don't know. And sometimes people will feel like, you know, I started, you know, lifting weights and I'm getting bulky, and it's just because they're putting on muscle, but they're not losing fat. Right. And so having somebody who can actually tell the difference for you, who's an expert, is super helpful. And I think that's because that's the other part of it. Like, I think the inflammation conversation is really important. I know for me, that's a huge factor. I think huge. Like inflammation is more important for me to pay attention to in my workout routine than anything else, just with like my history and the sensitivity of my body. And it's wild to me how drastically my body will change just based on inflammation. You know, I'm like, this is like water weight. Yeah. And I think that's another really important part of the conversation. You know, so there's just like a lot of different things going on. Like, is it actually muscle? Is it fat? Is it inflammation? Like, what's going, is it, you know, water weight, inflammation?
Is it just training adaptation? Yeah. 100%. And so much of my conversation on my own podcast is about inflammation. Inflammation is everything. You nailed it, especially for someone who has autoimmune disorders or symptoms. Inflammation is everything, because your inflammation is already titrated a bit higher. And if you add the wrong thing into the mix, it just goes even higher. And so the phrase I often say to people is when fat's not body fat. And so it's that layer of fluffy. A lot of times women will find out it wasn't body fat. It was water. It was inflammation because of too many HIIT workouts, or because they were eating too few carbs, or because they were eating too much protein, which is a thing. And so inflammation is a huge part of it. We know without a shadow of a doubt that you are not able to build muscle anytime sooner than 6 to 8 weeks into a consistent, progressive resistance strength training program. So if someone's listening and they started lifting weights 2 weeks ago and you believe you're bulking up, you literally biologically cannot build muscle before 6 to 8 weeks into a program. And even in those 6 to 8 weeks, the weight loads have to have been going upwards. And so a lot of women are like, I start working out and I bulk up right away. And I'm like, well, that's not muscle. That's water redistribution because of a training adaptation. And we see that a lot. And so that is one of the reasons, one of the million reasons why I began implementing DEXA scans for body composition, because then I can show people what's actually happening. And it's not opinion. It's fact. And so it really helps women get information about their body and their training protocol to find out, is that really bulk or is that feedback that your training protocol or your nutrition aren't actually supporting your goal?
Yeah. So is it normal to get some inflammation first and then it comes down?
Without a doubt. Yeah. So it does depend on your baseline level of fitness and the activities that you have been doing. That's what we call your chronic training. And so if you have been consistently doing other activities that have engaged your muscles a certain way, you might have less of that adaptation. But for the most part, there's something called specificity in training. And what that means is the human body is always going to respond to the stimulus that you give it. And so for every reaction, every action, there's a reaction. And so if you haven't been doing true strength training or weightlifting, even if it is in like a body pump type class, you will have this water redistribution if you're doing it properly. The reason for that is I'm an advocate of true progressive resistance strength training with straight set protocols, which basically means your intensity is intra-set. The intensity is in the repetitions, not in your workout. Your workout should not be intense. The intensity is over 2 or 3 reps in a set. And if you are new to that type of activity, it's going to create cellular level damage on the muscle. Water rushes in to refuel that muscle, but to also rebuild that muscle. And so it's really just a water redistribution coming into the cell of the muscle to heal it, and then it goes away. So it will go away in the short term if you're following the right training protocol, right? So if you're spacing out your workouts appropriately, if you've got, good recovery, you may get some water retention the day after a workout, but then it's going to subside and then it'll come back after your next workout. And if you do have chronically elevated inflammation throughout the week, then it's a matter of waiting out that 6 to 8 weeks, because then there will be more of a holistic adaptation. And then there will be this, really, your body has adapted to the training. And so your body will release that water and it won't be so acute.
Yeah. I think the recovery is probably a part of the conversation a lot of people need to hear. Like most of the people listening to this, everyone's going to be different. Some people, sometimes questions like they're brand new to it, but just, I know a lot of my audience is more of like the overdoer type, like the overworker, the overtrainer, the like overdoer type. And I think, a lot of us have to learn to peel it back a little bit and like what's actually proper recovery. And I want to get into some specifics about like favorites you have. And you said you like straight set type of workouts in general, or like, cause I know it's going to be different depending on each client and their goals. But when we go back to the concept of training women is different, and we'll say like with nutrition and workouts, what are some of the big differences? Like what are some changes that you've made with clients and with yourself more specifically that helped you get the results you wanted?
So I think how I would answer that is to say that across the board, in general, for I would say the vast majority of women, because of our relationship with estrogen and testosterone, high intensity go workouts, or workouts that are too frequent, or workouts that have too much volume in a week. A lot of times, a lot of women are just doing too much, whether that's too much frequency, too much time, too much intensity, okay? Most people are doing too much. So That causes inflammation because cortisol goes up, right? The biggest change is bringing that down, the intensity down, with very strategic bouts of intensity, because intensity is still important. But there's different kinds of intensity. A burpee is a type of intensity, but so is sprinting. So is a really heavy set of deadlifts. Those are 3 very different kinds of intensity. Mm-hmm. And so intensity is important, but it's like medicine. You really have to dose it out. That's the biggest thing that I've seen with women, especially I would say 30 and up. Your estrogen is going to start to fluctuate around 33 to 35. And I know when I was in that age range, I was like, I just refused to believe that my estrogen was changing. And that really is the biological marking of perimenopause. Whether you're aware of it or not, your estrogen is starting to fluctuate around the age of 33 to 35. And so it's at that like age of 30 to 35 that I really want women to start to get strategic in the balance between high intensity workouts and more moderate stuff. Because the more intense stuff you do, the more pronounced your recovery has to be. And so there's a correlation between intensity, frequency, and recovery, right? The harder you work, the more you have to recover. Mm-hmm. And so I'm often trying to get a gauge of a person's natural ability to recover, because we all recover differently. Some people recover great. Most women, in my experience, recover slowly.
Yeah.
Right? Especially if you've got autoimmune stuff or any gut-related stuff. And so the real question comes down to how fast do you recover, and the intelligence of your programming in a week. I think a lot of people think a workout is a workout is a workout. A spin class is different than a boot camp class. It's actually not, right?
Yeah.
Right? And a high intensity yoga class is actually not that different than a spin class.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and this is why I want you to help people understand high intensity versus low intensity, because it's such a hot topic, and people are like, yeah, I switched to low intensity workouts, and they're doing hot yoga every day or hot sculpt. And I'm like, I would die if I did a hot sculpt class every day. Like that feels high intensity to me. Just because it's like a yoga move doesn't mean it's low intensity.
Exactly. Or Pilates.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I think with resistance training, it's been the same for me. Like I've worked with certain trainers, and they're like, no, this is like low intensity, but it's too much for like my body. It's too high intensity for my body. We're not doing like circuits or anything HIIT, but it's still, if it's a heavy weight, it's high intensity. And like I've had to kind of learn what that is for my body. So I think that those terms are thrown around, but people don't really know what they're talking about. Like, what does that mean?
100%. Like spot on, really and truly. The definition of intensity is, where's your heart rate? High heart rate changes the fueling mechanism of your metabolism. The higher your heart rate, the higher the demand for carbohydrates in your body. And if you're eating low carb, those carbs aren't there. Yeah. And that's where we actually get into trouble. Some women are like, great, I'm going to burn off all the alcohol I drank last night. High intensity, I burn off carbs. It actually doesn't work that way. So intensity is, if your heart rate gets up above about 85% of your real maximal heart rate ability, that's high intensity. The more seconds you spend with your heart rate up above about 85%, the more trouble you get into. That's the definition of intensity. It doesn't matter if you're meditating really hard. If your heart rate is getting up above 85%, right? That is high intensity. It doesn't matter if it's Pilates or yoga or swimming, right? Or spinning or whatever it may be. It's heart rate based. The one thing I do want to say is that because of all of this conversation, this is a big conversation now out there in the world, I'm seeing and hearing a lot of loud voices being proponents of lists, right?
Yes.
Low intensity, steady state cardio and lower intensity workouts. But what you have to understand is, like, if your intensity is too low, you're not going to get any results. And so I'm not saying that the antidote to high intensity is low intensity.
Yeah.
I'm not, because low intensity can be as much of a problem as high intensity. you've got to have strategy in what your intensity is, how much you're getting of it, how frequently it's programmed in a given week, and how you're going about it. It really is medicine. There's a time and a place for low intensity, steady state cardio, but there is also a place for moderate intensity. And yes, some intensity if you're actually watching your heart rate and knowing how many seconds your heart rate is above that 85%. Because if you're trying to do, let's say, a Tabata workout and you're not tracking your heart rate and your heart rate is above 80% for 20 minutes, that is incredibly taxing on your biology. And it's a 20-minute workout. Yeah. How taxing could that be? But the higher your heart rate goes, the more demand for carbohydrates there is. And depending on what your nutrition and your refueling is, you could really get into trouble. That's where we get adrenal burnout.
Yeah.
The adrenals really need a lot of carbohydrates. And so we get into trouble with people who already have high stress or adrenal fatigue or adrenal burnout, and then they're doing these high intensity workouts and eating low carb or doing fasted workouts. Don't even get me started there. That's like a recipe for disaster, any kind of a fasted workout. Because there's no carbohydrates in your system.
Yeah.
And so really the takeaway here isn't like high intensity is bad. That's not true. High intensity has a value if you know how to do it right, appropriately, at the right heart rate, for the right amount of time, for the right number of workouts per week. And LISS has a value, but that can't be your only workout because you'll never become more fit. It's that specificity of training that I mentioned.
Yeah.
And there really is an art and a science to improving a person's body composition, but we didn't know that until, thankfully, the proliferation of social media and the internet and the pervasiveness of email inboxes and messaging and science, thankfully.
Yeah. I mean, it really is an art. I look at like my own journey with it, and the first time I got like truly knocked down with burnout, like I couldn't get out of bed for 4 months. It was, I was eating pretty low carb, like not like keto, but it was lower in carbohydrates. And I was doing this like classic lifting program. I was lifting heavy. It was, this guy was training me. And I just remember this moment. I was deadlifting, and I always describe it like I felt my nervous system snap. Like I just felt my nervous system snap, and I got really dizzy. And I was bedridden for 4 months.
Yep.
And I was doing straight sets, very slow, but lifting heavy, lots of rest time. But it was just a moment I lifted and I just felt it snap. And, it took me a long time to recover from that. And I felt like after that, anytime I like lifted a weight over the next 3 years, my whole body, I felt my brain, kind of die. and then I look back like, more recently, I'm like, maybe like 2 years ago, I tried this program that was like marketed as for girls who like struggle with their cortisol, and it's like it's all low intensity and like light, and it was actually a lot of endurance and kind of like yoga Pilates stylish, and I was so puffy all the time because I'm like I was basically doing like low intensity cardio for a long time every day.
Correct.
And so then that also messed me up. And that's where I think that art and like what the schedule has to be for your specific body, it has to be individualized. I really believe that. And you have to know, like, my heart rate raises a lot more quickly than other people's. So to know that about myself, and I think people will not really know what zone they're in with their heart rate. And, getting a tracker is actually really helpful for that for me. But that's where I think people really struggle with that balance of like strength and cardio and what type of cardio. And it gets really overcomplicated.
It can't, and it does get overcomplicated because it is complex, right? And so we think fitness should be this like, hobby.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be complicated. It actually is very complicated. Yeah. It's human biology. It's physiology. It's actually way more complicated than anybody realized. And to speak to your high intensity, I think it was a deadlift you said.
Yeah.
So even though there was even if you were resting 5 minutes between your sets, if your heart rate got up to that 95% of your maximal heart rate, That's the exact intensity that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so I don't feel anybody should be getting up to that level of intensity. Young men can do it. And I would even argue men up to the age of like 37 can do it. But women, as soon as you get up above that 85%, it doesn't matter what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
If you're up above that 85% and then you wait 5 minutes and do it again and wait 5 minutes and do it again.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
That's for sure.
If you're doing 10 sets.
Yeah.
Even though the intensity only lasted for 3 reps, 15 seconds, your heart rate is up at this extreme high heart rate for a period of time. And that is where we get into trouble. And so again, I realize I could sound like I'm telling people not to do intensity work. I'm not. I'm saying know what your heart rate is. Wear your heart rate tracker. Know what 85% is. Know how hard is too hard. Know what is your budget so that you're staying a little under too hard, but you're kind of walking that line so that you can maximize your progress, your gains, so as to speak, but not to the degree that you're going to risk your recovery. And really, there's so much more research coming out now that we see that like these super high intense moments, whatever they are just not necessary. Mm-hmm. It's really not as productive as we once thought it was. And so there's just not a need for it. If you're a little percentage lower in the intensity, are you going to get less results, less better results? No, it just might take a little longer. Might take another week or 2 weeks instead of happening very quickly. Mm-hmm. There is I guess it would be an inverse relationship between intensity and speed of results. And so, or maybe it's a direct relationship. The harder, the higher intense effort, the faster your body will change, provided it's smart and you've got the recovery in there.
Yeah. Right?
And so like this high intensity workout can get you fit very quickly, but you have to know how to do it. And also, like I said, be pairing it with the right amount of recovery, assuming you can recover well. I don't recover well.
Yeah.
And so for me it's trouble.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously this can get complicated for people. I want to ask you some questions to start to simplify it for people going into this, knowing it's different for everyone, right? So if you're working with somebody one-on-one, I'm sure it would be nuanced every time. But in general, we know you like straight set style training, and we're talking about for women. Mm-hmm. And let's say like, and I know there's going to be variation here, but let's say it's like 30 to 50. We're in there, age range.
Okay.
What rep ranges do you like?
One of my favorite conversations. So I'm so passionate about this.
Tell me.
And this is something that you probably will not hear out there.
Great.
Even my esteemed male colleagues who are PhDs and MDs aren't talking about this, and they should be. This is a very unusual conversation. And when I really came to understand this, it was like a major game changer. So first and foremost, muscle preservation is everything for women. That's number one. I would even say the building of muscle trumps that. And that is up to your opinion of how much muscle you want. But I promise you, the rest of your life will be so much better the more muscle you have. So we're talking about building muscle. That is called muscle hypertrophy. Hypertrophy is the increase in the size, the cross-sectional area of the muscle. Okay? Hypertrophy. So people in the fitness industry love to get into this debate of rep ranges.
Yeah.
The truth is, a muscle can and will get bigger at all rep ranges, depending on your volume. And for women in particular, for all humans, there's 2 different kinds of hypertrophy. This is what no one talks about. There is myofibrillar hypertrophy, and there is sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Those are 2 different kinds of hypertrophy. No one's talking about this. Those kind of hypertrophies happen because of the stimulus. So higher rep ranges cause sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. Lower rep ranges lead more towards what we call myofibrillar hypertrophy. This is assuming all other training variables are the same.
Yeah.
Okay. And that you're hitting the right amount of load and you're hitting the right intensity in terms of your strength effort at a weight load. right? If you're not progressively overloading your weight load, you're not going to build muscle. The queen of all is that you have to be increasing your weight loads for any kind of hypertrophy for the most part. We're going to assume all of that is there. So for women in particular, I am a much bigger fan of myofibrillar hypertrophy because that is where the actual cross-sectional size of the muscle fibers is increasing. Sarcoplasmic hypertrophy is an increase in the fluid around the cells.
Is it the pump?
It's the pump.
Okay.
And it's essentially inflammation.
Yeah.
Is essentially what it is.
Yeah.
It's an increase in the fluid around the muscle cells. And that hypertrophy doesn't stick around. That's when you get the pump in your booty class, but the next morning your butt has deflated. That's sarcoplasmic hypertrophy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's the pump, and we love the pump, but the pump doesn't stick around. Myofibrillar hypertrophy sticks around, and that is when you're actually changing the size of the muscle cell. And what I have found in my experience of 30 years of coaching people is that that's the muscle that sticks around longer. That's the kind of muscle where you could go on vacation for 2 weeks and not lose all your progress. But if you're doing, let's say, like a booty pump class, and you go on vacation and your booty looks great on day one of the vacation, but by the end of the vacation, you've lost that fullness or that muscle tone, that's sarcoplasmic hypertrophy. But if you really had this true, I call true, myofibrillar hypertrophy, you're going to look the same on your last day of your vacation as the first day, assuming you don't go wild at the bar, right? Yeah. And so therefore, for myofibrillar hypertrophy, this is where we are using lower rep ranges at higher weight loads.
Okay.
And so I am a proponent of women using truly appropriately heavier weight loads to her ability. It should be a percentage of your ability. A heavy deadlift for you might be a very different heavy deadlift for me,
for sure,
than my friend Michelle, right? It's all relative to your chronic training, where your body is. So for women, especially over the age of 30, I only teach myofibrillar hypertrophy, which is higher weight loads where your reps are anywhere between 8 to 10, maybe 12. I have explicitly stopped programming more reps above 12. I do not train 15 reps anymore for work sets. Make a long story longer. That is because by the time you get up to, let's say, 12 reps, 13, 14, 15, in order to be able to do 15 reps, you're not lifting a heavy enough weight load to really change the muscle cell. It has to be 12 reps or less.
Okay.
No matter how much volume you have, no matter how intense the workout is otherwise, the weight load, right? Like if you could imagine, let's say imagine doing a deadlift or any exercise, it could be a bicep curl, and let's say the intensity is going to be 80% of your ability, 80%, right? So a dumbbell at 80% of your ability, let's say at 5 pounds, is very different than if I gave you a dumbbell at 35 pounds for the same intensity. You're going to do fewer reps.
Yeah.
Right? At 80% of a 5-pound dumbbell, you're going to do 35, 40 reps. But with a heavier dumbbell, you're not going to be able to do as many reps. And so I always say if a person's cranking out reps, 12, 13, 14, 15, they're not using a weight load that's really going to change your muscle.
Okay. What about if people can't keep increasing the weight for whatever reason, like logistically?
Why couldn't they?
What if they're not at a gym, for example?
Okay. So ultimately, that is where we're going to have to get more creative about what we call overloading the muscle, because weight load is only one variable, right? There are other training variables that we can employ to increase the time under tension or to increase the intensity to the muscle. And if a person is going to be limited by their external weight loads, that is where we're going to have to change the training outcome. Your results are going to be different. Yeah. You're definitely not going to get bulky if your weight loads are limited, right? And so we can employ those other variables like a longer pause, slower repetitions, more sets, right?
Yeah.
You can do more reps up to 12, but then in order to get that volume, we might need to do more sets. We can do more frequency of workouts during the week. Like I said, a longer pause at the point of transition. So there's other ways that we make the workout harder where you'll progress, but again, because of specificity of training, your results are just going to be different.
Yeah.
You, at some point, really are going to cap out on the actual hypertrophy you'll get, the muscle size changes, if your weight loads are limited.
Yeah. Things have to change for things to change, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So continuing with this conversation, we like that rep range. In terms of other recommendations, are you a fan of full body workouts? Are you more of a fan of like any type of split? What do you like for women?
In general, I like a training split.
Okay.
And there's lots of conversation about this these days.
Hot topic.
And I love it.
Yeah.
And I'm here for all of it. So in my industry, boy, we experts and or voices have a real tendency to want to believe my way is the right way. And I think one of the things that makes me unique is I will say my methods work, but that doesn't mean it's the only way and that my way is the right way. There are other experts out there that get great results as well.
Yeah.
And so I know from my clients that this works. And if something different works for you, that's awesome because there are a number of ways to do this. So, ultimately, I am a fan of a split body training protocol for the following reasons. Again, it comes back to the intensity, right? And being able to move incrementally heavier weight loads. So if a person like you and me struggles with recovery and you're going into a strength training workout doing full body 5 days a week or even 3 days a week, okay?
Yeah.
If
I would die if it was 5 days.
Right. I mean, most people would. I wouldn't ever recommend that. But people are really confused by this full body training concept. And again, it's nuanced and we have to define what it actually means. But depending on your rate of recovery and how well you recover and what your nutrition strategy is, that full body could actually be not beneficial. It might work against you. What I have found, most women in my experience, I rarely have met a woman who has more energy than she knows what to do with.
Yeah.
Most of us are struggling with fatigue on some level, right?
Yeah.
Most women, in my experience, of all ages are struggling with energy issues or stamina issues or the ability to recover from their workouts. So because of that, I'd rather have you have these very distinct pockets of time each week where the weight load is as high as we can get it to create that stimulus, but give you enough time to recover before the next workout. And I have found while you could do, I am a fan of, let's say, lower body workouts 3 times a week, but I could be okay with 2 times a week, right? But that doesn't mean you're doing your quadriceps 3 times a week. And I know there are other expert voices will say they can do glutes 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And so really, this is where we have to get specific about the type of training program you're following, because the types of exercises, the way that you're loading them, the set progression, all of these things matter. So if you're following the right program, you could hit your glutes 5 days a week if you recover well, depending on your total weekly volume, because that does influence things. But ultimately, what I have found in my community with my clients all these years is that a split training protocol in a week works great, where there's 3 strength workouts hitting different body parts. And so generally, I will hit 3 different body parts or 3 different muscle groups per workout. That could be legs, back, and shoulders. That could be glutes, biceps, and triceps. 3 different muscle groups. And then on that next day of training, different muscle groups. I would never have someone do all the major muscle groups of the body, 3 workouts in a week, which is typically what we call full body training. And so as long as the legs definitely need more than 2 incidences, 2 or more incidences per week, but we can even split that up between push and pulling, right? Like a posterior pulling based day versus a quadricep pushing based day. That's still legs, but we can get away with that 2 or 3 times per week. When it comes to the other muscle groups of the body, I really like 1 day a week, with the exception of pulling exercises for your back. I do like back pulling exercises twice per week. And there's a number of reasons for that. Therefore, the other body part areas, biceps, triceps, all of those, I get good results with my clients 1 time a week, provided that the protocol is there to give them enough stimulus. Here's why. I mean, obviously, I could talk about this for an hour, so stop me if I'm getting really boring.
No, I love it.
But let's say you do legs and back today. If you tomorrow or the next day go to do arms, your biceps were used on your back day.
Yeah.
And so when we talk about, but I'm only hitting my biceps once a week, well, you're really not. If you did lat pull down on your back day or a bent over row, you're using your biceps. And so your biceps are getting exposure more than once per week. And so when we talk about this full body, split training protocol, again, it's nuanced. I don't think anybody should be doing all the major muscle groups of the body in a workout. You just can't work hard enough.
Yeah, I agree
You
with that.
can't put enough work onto all of those muscle groups in one workout to get enough of a training stimulus.
Yeah, or people are there for like 2-3
Yes,
hours.
I mean, that's a problem.
Yeah, anytime I've done programs like that, I always feel like I did a lot, but I didn't do anything. You know what I mean? Like I was working really hard, and like none of my muscles feel like anything happened.
Because at most, what were you getting? Maybe if you were lucky, you were getting 4 to 6 sets per muscle.
Yeah.
And you need more than that, right, for an effective workout. And so again, we look at how many sets per muscle group in the workout, how many sets per muscle group in an entire week, the weekly volume versus the workout volume.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. It's just no one is going to go in. And even though you might get like a hormonal response by doing squats and deadlift and bench press and pull-ups on the same day.
Yeah.
It's just each specific body area or muscle group may not get sufficiently fatigued and may not get a sufficient stimulus that you need on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
Right?
It's interesting what you say, though, because it's like you like the split, but it sounds like from the workouts you program, each day you're hitting lower and upper body.
For sure. Yeah.
So that's where that's like, I mean, not that many people I feel like talk about that. Most people are either like upper lower. Yeah. Or
exactly.
like body part split, like biceps today and,
Yep.
or their full body. Like that's actually very unique.
Yeah. So mine would be closer to a bro approach, but I usually do 3 body parts. So legs always. I do program legs 2 to 3 times per week. Sometimes I'll do push-pull. Sometimes I'll do movement-based, squats one day, deadlift another day. Sometimes I will do all pulling, regardless of body area. Sometimes I like pushing and pulling in a workout. It really just depends on my programming. But ultimately, mine does look more like a traditional like a bodybuilder type protocol.
Yeah.
But it's always a leg-based, let's say a lower body. But then you can't spend 90 minutes in the gym just on lower body.
Yeah.
You can. That's going to be very fatiguing for most mere mortals.
Yeah.
I'm not talking to fitness cover models probably here. I'm not talking to bodybuilders here, right? And so for most mere mortals, you don't need that volume in a workout. So we need approximately 12 to 16 sets, working sets max for your lower body in a workout. Max. Some people would even say that's too much volume.
Yeah.
Right? So what are you going to do the rest of the workout? That's why we've got to then have 12 sets for your back, maybe 8 sets for your shoulders, your deltoids, right? And so I like to split it up between lower body and a large upper body, back, deltoid, or chest. And then sometimes I will throw arms in as a workout itself, or sometimes it's back and biceps, or sometimes it's back and triceps. Again, it depends on my programming. I think I'm really good at programming.
Yeah.
And all of my different programs are all very different because I go through different like philosophies. But yeah, a common split you would see with me would be like legs, back, delts. Legs, chest, triceps, legs, back, abs, right? I don't overtrain chest. I do train more pulling, back exercise to chest. And that goes back to just like human movement. We need more pulling exercises than we need to pushing.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't do arm specific, because if you're bench pressing, if you're doing pull-ups or lat pull down, if you're doing compound movement patterns in general, you might not need biceps and triceps. Like my biceps get a lot of work from my bench press. My triceps get a lot from deadlifting and hip thrust. So, and RDL, I mean, Romanian deadlift is such a great exercise for your triceps and your back. And so, yeah, it's, I guess really what I would say is mine is more like movement based.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And then it's so abs really only once a week because you're involving them with everything else.
Yeah. I mean, I go through stages of this, and I think I would say we could talk about what I would do for myself and what I might train a person to do, because it is different. I don't do ab work at all. If you are engaging your core and using your core appropriately, a deadlift is going to train your core. A Romanian deadlift is going to train your core. Squats are going to train your core. And so I do very little ab specific work. Now, by the way, I don't have a ripped six pack right now. I also believe, and this is where people are going to maybe feel it sounds a little conflicted, but I also believe that your abs are a muscle group just like your quadriceps or your glutes. It is just another muscle group.
Yeah.
And so absolutely, without a doubt, you can strength train your abs like you would any other muscle group. I believe that too. And so it depends on my person, my client that I'm working with, their goals, and really the overall shape of their fitness level. If they're doing high quality, high intensity workouts, I might not have any ab exercises in the program. And if they're maybe newer to strength training, there might be 3 ab workouts per week. So it's anywhere from 0 to 3. I rarely would do more than 3 ab workouts a week. Sometimes those ab workouts are more crunchy type exercises, muscular endurance. And some of them are loaded like a cable pull down, like strength training for your abs. I think when it comes to abs, I would argue the argument's out.
Yeah.
You know, the judgment's out on that. The jury's out on it. You could do a number of things, whatever works for you. But without a doubt, if you're trying to get visible ab definition, it's a lot more about your nutrition than about the exercises that you're doing.
Yeah. So in this conversation, do you throw cardio in? Are you a no cardio girly?
No, I'm not a no cardio, because again, I really am a science purist.
Yeah.
There is value for cardio.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is value. And touching upon what we talked about before, it I would argue it's medicinal. It's dose based. And so I don't do a lot of cardio because I find it's incredibly taxing for my delicate constitution.
Yeah.
I have to be very careful. Even with just getting 10,000 steps a day, I have to be very careful. And so it really depends on the person.
You're like the first person I've ever heard say that. Because
Really?
I'm the same way. Yeah. Like, I got to be careful.
Cardio will ruin me.
It will. Like, I'm really sensitive. And, like, I'm so much more inflamed. When I'm getting 10,000 steps every day, I'm, like, way more inflamed.
Yeah.
You know?
And I would argue this, I don't know if I have the right words on this because I've never said it this way before, because I don't meet a lot of people like you either.
Yeah.
Who understands us, right?
For sure.
So I tend to keep this conversation close to the chest because a lot of people don't understand. I know your people do.
Yeah.
I would actually argue that what human needs is what we're talking about. Human does not need a lot of cardio.
Yeah, I agree.
Don't.
Yeah.
We do need cardiovascular activity, but listen closely. If you're strength training, as per what we've talked about, you're getting cardiovascular fitness in your deadlift.
Yeah.
Because your heart rate's going up during your set and then it's coming down. If you're doing your strength training right, it's interval training. It's a cardiovascular interval training workout. And so I get my cardiovascular fitness from my strength workouts. I never use cardio to burn fat. I think that is a bad strategy across the board. Cardio should be used to improve your cardiovascular health and or your cardiovascular fitness. Those are 2 different things. Your strength training is going to take care of some of it. And I do think that there is a place for moderate, steady state intensity. because that is where we improve cardiovascular health.
Yeah.
It's where we improve glucoregulatory control, insulin sensitivity. It's where we improve insulin sensitivity at the site of the muscle cell. It's what helps your body regulate carbohydrates better. It's what boosts recovery. It boosts your mood, endorphins, a sense of well-being. So there is a place for moderate cardio, but it really should be dosed based on your constitution, your immune system, the other aspects of your training protocol. If you're doing a ton of high intensity strength workouts, I'm not going to schedule any cardio whatsoever at all. Go for a walk a couple times a week. That will be your recovery because you're getting so much in your other training protocol. I mean, I'm a huge fan of yoga. Love, love, love yoga. And I get a crazy cardiovascular workout in a yoga class. Yeah. No one would call that cardio. Yeah. But
I think it is.
It is. It's a cardiovascular training effect. Yeah. But you're just doing yoga. Right.
Yeah. So when you say moderate, is yoga an example of that, or what are some examples so people know if am I in the moderate, like the lists? No one really talks about the moderate.
No, isn't it crazy? Yeah. This extreme world we live in. It's either no carbs or tons of carbs. Yeah. It's either tons of meat or vegan. It just blows my mind. Why have we missed the middle?
Well, because something controversial is sexy and sellable, you know, but then and people get excited about it because they feel like I'm different. I'm doing this extreme thing. And then they get super messed up. Like
people love a hack.
Yeah. Yeah.
Biohacking or any hack. People love a hack. And it's like, guys, guess what? You don't need to hack anything if you just stay in the middle. The right in the middle is the sweet spot where the body just changes. Like you'd be shocked. Like when people will follow my protocol to a T, or when I follow my own protocol to a T, which I don't always, by the way, I'm not vigilant. It's shocking how fast the human body will change in the middle. So going back to LISS, moderate, high intensity, that is all gauged based on the heart rate response. So high intensity is a high heart rate. Low intensity LISS, low intensity steady state cardio is lower heart rate. Generally, the definition of that would be around 50 to 55% of your actual heart rate maximal ability. Okay, nobody really knows their actual maximal heart rate, so we do a theoretical calculation. But LISS is low intensity, approximately 50 to 55% of your maximal heart rate ability. High intensity is 85 and above. Moderate is somewhere around 70%. I would say 65 to 85, about 65 to 75, depending on, again, a person. But 70% to me is the sweet spot for moderate. And so when I'm doing moderate steady state programming, it's 70 to 75%. And then I am a fan of interval workouts for people. I just don't have them go up above 85% of their true heart rate maximum. And so, again, there's a little bit of tinkering to know what that is. But that, again, it's like LISS has a place, but you're not going to get fit from doing LISS, right? It's a recovery modality. And it's to make you feel good. And maybe you want to walk your dog or walk with your friend or get your 10,000 steps in. There's a value in that. But there's not a fitness application for it. Really, it's a recovery application. And so moderate is where it's at. But even still, you can do too much moderate. Right? If I were to say there's a template, a very generalized template for how I program, I will program 2 interval workouts a week for a person, 3 moderate steady state workouts, and 3 to 4 strength workouts. That's kind of my basic template. I deviate based on the person, based on the program, based on the demographic. If it's a more delicate constitution like us, that's going to be different. I have some clients that do no cardio. I do very little true cardio. And like I said, I get it through my strength training.
I mean, I think that's usually when I feel best too. Like you've got to listen to your body for sure. Are you a fan of cardio after? If somebody is, it's after their strength.
Without a doubt. My preferred protocol is that you have great variety in your activities all week long. Great variety. If you want to take a spin class, that's awesome. 5 days a week is not my preferred variety, right? If you love yoga, awesome. Repetition is not good for the human body. Any repetition. If you run every day, if you spin every day, if you yoga every day, I don't care how good the form of activity is, the human body does not like too much repetition. You will get injured. And so variety is the name of the game. Some strength training, some yoga, some Pilates, some walking, some spinning, some dance, some whatever, right? Like the variety is key, splitting those up throughout the week in general. So my preferred answer there is you do your strength workout one day and you do your cardio workout a different day. It's a different workout. Put your energy into your strength workout.
Yeah.
Put your energy into your yoga. Put your energy into your cardio. Do them separately. And for the person who has to do them both at the same time, without a doubt, cardio comes after strength training because you need as much raw, natural life force energy as you have to go into your strength training, because even if you build muscle easily, it's hard to build muscle. The stimulus still has to be there. The intensity in the workout still has to be there. It is hard for 99% of women to build muscle. So if you're doing cardio beforehand, you're just pre-exhausting yourself.
Yeah.
Then you go into your strength workout and you just don't have as much energy that you need for a deadlift or a goblet squat or a leg press, whatever your exercise is. You need that vital energy to be able to move a slightly heavier weight load so that you can actually build muscle.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So I don't want to not address nutrition. I know you talked about like a lot of women probably get better results if they increase their carbs a little bit from where they're at. So you probably see more people lower carb. What do you consider to be like low carb in terms of numbers?
So that gets, each person has a different definition of low carb, high carb.
Yeah.
What I found when I actually track what people are eating, most people who think they're low carb actually aren't. If we look at your eating over a 10-day period, you might have been low carb Monday to Thursday, but Friday and Saturday, those days weren't low carb. That all balances out. So most of the time, people think they're low carb and they're not. That's the first thing. Second, and this gets a little tricky, there are different metabolic fueling protocols, okay? And your body is going to respond to the stimulus you're giving it, specificity. If you're going to employ a low carb or ketogenic or high protein protocol, you have to be looking at the numbers, especially with like a ketogenic approach, because if your carbs aren't low enough, you're not actually in ketogenesis for an extended period of time. So what's interesting, and I just did research on this for my book that's coming out next year, we as a society have actually come to misdefine what is low carb and high carb. And I was actually shocked when I did the research on this just a month ago. Totally shocked that since the 70s, well, really, I guess 70s is when Atkins came onto the map, if you will. And then the early 90s was like Atkins into the zone. And people would call the zone low carb. It's actually moderate carb. And so since then, we've really been completely hijacked by this low carb conversation that we've forgotten what high carb is. When you actually look at the true definition of it, moderate carbs is 50 to 60% of your daily calories coming from carbs. Most people would call that high carb. High carb is 70 to 80% of your daily calories coming from carbs. That is high carb. By the way, some people thrive on that. So moderate carbs is what I teach. And this is backed by a lot of research, and even the American Diabetes Association is a proponent of this. Somewhere between 40 and 50% of your daily calories coming from carbohydrates is what the human body is designed for, full stop. So unless you're hacking something, 40 to 50% of your daily calories is what your body's designed for. It's not, but see, that's it. To you, that seems like a lot because you were born under the low carb era.
Yeah, for sure.
That's actually technically the medical definition. That's moderate carbs. A lot is 70 or 80%, which no one is doing except elite athletes.
Yeah.
Endurance athletes are upwards of 60 and 70% carbohydrates because they need it.
Mm-hmm.
So what I found is that because of estrogen, because of our busy life, because of our workouts, because of strength building through strength training and muscle building, you need more than 30 to 35% of your daily calories coming from carbs. You actually need it, and it's what the human body prefers.
Mm-hmm.
So optimal blood sugar regulation, which is everything.
Yeah.
I would even argue that trumps gut health. Gut health is...
I actually feel the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if your blood sugar is dysregulated, your gut health is going to be out of balance.
Yeah.
And so blood sugar regulation is everything.
Mm-hmm.
Everything. Brain health, digestive health,
yeah,
all of it, fat burning. So again, through research and science, we know that that sweet spot for optimal blood sugar regulation is between 40 and 50% daily calories coming from carbs. Ideally, you space those out throughout the day, and you have to be pairing them with protein. You have to. You have to pair your carbs with protein to really get balanced blood sugar. And so I would argue it's less about the percentage. It's more about the pairing of carbohydrates and protein for blood sugar regulation. And if a person is terrified of carbohydrates, I'll put them at 35 to 40% of their daily calories from carbs. But almost, I don't think, honestly, I'll be honest, in 30 years of coaching people, I don't think, let me think so I can answer this totally honestly, I don't think I've had a single client, woman, ever come to me and say, I feel better on fewer carbs. When they've been living low carb and I take them up a little bit, every single one of them feels better, provided they're actually implementing what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Right? Some people will hear me on a podcast or hear my own podcast, and they'll just start eating a bunch of carbs.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I felt terrible. I started eating pasta and bagels all the time. Holly Perkins said to eat more carbs. So I started eating more carbs arbitrarily.
Yeah.
But now they're getting 70 to 80% carbs. So I'm also not just saying eat more carbs arbitrarily. I'm saying get scientific about it. Do an audit every couple weeks. You don't have to be obsessive compulsive about what you're eating, but learn what 40 to 50% of your daily calories looks like and the preferred carbohydrate sources you like. And you get to choose your carbohydrate. It could be all vegetables if you want. You got to eat a lot of vegetables. It doesn't have to be grains. It could be fruit. It doesn't have to be fruit, right? I don't feel any food is bad or off limits. I think that if Mother Nature created it, we can consume it, and you get to decide what you feel best on. I don't feel great on grains. That's because I have an autoimmune situation, right? I don't feel great. But when my autoimmunity is in good place, I can eat grains, right? And so humans are designed to be able to eat a variety. We're omnivores. We are designed to eat a lot of things. But again, it's like if you can get this window of about 40 to 50% of your daily calories coming from carbs spaced throughout the day, every client I've ever had comes back to me saying, oh my gosh, I just dropped 5 pounds like that. My tummy is finally not bloated. I can actually think clearly during the day. I have more energy. There's a very, 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 very famous person in your space. I would argue your space, and we can talk about it offline. I just listened to one of this person's podcasts, and this person is struggling with borderline diabetic symptoms. Yeah. And this person has also been publicly low carb. Yeah. Ultra low carb for a number of years. Yeah. And that person doesn't understand why they're borderline diabetic. And I know right away it's because they have been restricting carbs for too long, and that throws off glucoregulatory control. Yeah. And so we have a lot of women in their early 30s that are syndrome X and borderline diabetic, and they've been eating low carb. But isn't that what you're supposed to do to reduce your risk of diabetes? The American Diabetes Association recommends 40 to 55% of your daily calories coming from carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are needed. It's just they've been abused for a lot of years.
Yeah, and I think to your point, there's a lot of other nuances. Like I'll say I'm not as deep in the research as you are, but I know my own body really well, and I've learned about my own body, one, through like how I feel, but more importantly, like through using a CGM for a long, long time, like through tracking, you know, I've tracked a lot of different things. You have to track everything and you realize, whoa, like I didn't realize I wasn't eating enough of this or that, and figuring out what works for my body. And people who have, you know, been listening to the show for a while know I've tried so many different extremes and so many different diets. Like, and when I say tried, I mean like things for like years. Like this is not just like 2 weeks, right? So I have a lot of data on my own body with like being ultra high carb, right? Yep. Being vegan, being carnivore, being all meat, being only potatoes for 8 months. Like I have done everything extreme. And what's interesting for me, like with my blood sugar, for example, is when I go super low carb, my blood sugar is perfect. Mm-hmm. When I'm like, I guess what I consider in my head moderate for myself, where it's like my plate looks like, you know, carbs, protein, fat, my blood sugar is a wreck. Like it is a wreck. If I go super high carb and bring everything else down, my blood sugar is perfect again. Okay. And so I've like learned with my body, and I'm using those terms like moderate, high, based on just how I see it, what it is, like based off of research, maybe it's the wrong term, but I think that's where if people are kind of struggling with how they're feeling, I'm like, play with like adding a little more, or like you've got to like play in that moderate space, because to your point, there's a lot of gray area in the middle. And sometimes you're just over here a little bit, you need to swing over there. Yeah. You don't need to go to the full extreme. Yep. But I've learned for myself, my body definitely is sensitive, where I have to very much pay attention. And like for me, protein doesn't really affect my blood sugar. It's more fat. Like fat is the thing that keeps it calm. Yeah. Like
it slows the release.
Yeah. And I've noticed that, where it's like, oh, I'll play with adding more protein. It doesn't really seem to matter at all. But if I add like a little extra fat, my blood sugar is perfect. Yep. And getting that data was really helpful, because I kind of have to go out of my way to like add in those extra fat or like protein or carbs or whatever it is. But you wouldn't know that unless you tracked.
This is going to really throw a wrench in our conversation. Yeah. It could take us off in a different direction. But are you an O blood type?
I am.
I knew it.
Oh my God. Are you a blood type person?
I'm a blood type
person. You
person.
Believe in this?
Well, look at what I just did.
But
you told me 2 things about you, and I knew right away you were an O blood type.
You know what's so funny is people tell me this, and they're like, they're believers in it, and I'm
like,
a
believer.
I'm a believer in it too. Yeah. But what's so funny is I actually worked with this doctor for a long time who trained under the guy who started this.
Peter Diadamo.
Yeah, she was his direct like assistant.
I love it. I would like to know this person.
But she told me, she's like, it's crock of shit. She's like,
really?
She told me that. Yeah, really? She was like, I don't believe in. She's like, after I was there every single day with all the patients, and it didn't track. Like
interesting.
That's so. I had thrown it out, but then just through things I saw, like working as a nutritionist, I was like, honestly, I think it's right. Like,
that's wild. Yeah, so I reached out to him because I wanted to have him on the podcast, and he accepted my, like, we had an exchange, but like, he doesn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, he got abused. So that's very interesting. Listen, anyone listening, I understand it has not been proven. I understand most of the world feels that it's a crock of shit, to your point. Say that
here. I'm like talking
Here's what I will also say. I have been in business coaching people for 30 years. I'm highly educated. Yeah. I am just like you. I have experimented with all of the protocols out there. You got to admit the fact that I was able to figure out right away that you were an O says something.
I believe in it. I believe
in it. I can ask 3 questions most of the time. Yeah. And I 9 times out of 10 guess a person's blood type right.
Yeah.
And so I do not, how shall I say it? I teach some basic tenets of blood type eating. I don't teach like the whole thing, because I actually don't think you need to know if like green peppers or orange peppers are for your blood type, right? Or olive oil versus a whole olive. Like, there are broad strokes tenets that apply, and I can tell you what they are. O's tend to have digestive issues, which you did, right?
100%, yeah.
O's tend to do better on high fat and more protein and less carbs. That's you, right? And so there are some characteristics that after 30 years of being in practice coaching people, I have collected my own data. And you know what? Let me tell you about a client of mine I had. She came to me just for general coaching. Mm-hmm. And through our general coaching, it got revealed that she had been dealing with excruciating, debilitating stomach pain for like 4 or 5 years. She had a wealthy family. They traveled the world going to different doctors to figure out what her problem was to heal the stomach pain. She'd been on and off medications, hardcore medications. Nothing fixed her for 4 or 5 years, okay? After I got to know her, I took out eggs. She's not had stomach pain since.
Yeah. It's
and
real.
And that aligns with her blood type.
Yeah.
So, call me crazy.
Wait, so what's your blood type?
I'm a B.
You're a B. Okay.
I'm a B. Yeah. So chicken is a big one for bees, and corn is a big problem for bees. So I believe in it wholeheartedly. I've gotten death threat emails from people telling me how dumb I am for saying this. So I understand if someone is listening and they want to criticize me and tell me how dumb I am.
This audience, they want. I say wilder shit. Trust me. About diet.
I mean, I honor it. I welcome it. You have a right to your opinion. But what I will say is, if someone I've cleared migraines for people who are on migraine medication for 10 years. I've cleared digestive issues with people, eczema, psoriasis. I mean, the number of things that people have cleared up by me just employing a few little elements of eat this, don't eat that for your blood type. It's powerful. And so even if it is a crock of shit, it's been working.
It's not though. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it.
It makes sense though, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like if a B blood type comes from Southeast Asia, doesn't it make sense that my family's bloodline, lineage, and genetics ate certain foods
100%
for potentially 1.9 million years, right? So it's like, it makes sense to me that blood types came from a different geographical area. They were exposed to different foods for thousands, if not millions of years, right? It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And so if Peter D'Adamo and his father didn't yet have the technology or the finances to prove it, I could understand that.
Yeah.
I could believe that because it is really hard to prove that kind of science. So, if you don't believe it and you think it's baloney, that's fine. But if you're struggling with some health issues that you can't get cleared up, you might be open to hearing a new
people here. Well, I mean, my perspective on nutrition now is so different, like, because everything's just vibrational. So if I read someone's aura, I'll tell them what foods are good for them and what aren't, because it's just a vibrational match. Like, different foods have different frequencies, and depending on your constitution, your aura likes resonant frequencies. There's no science to that, but I'll tell you it works.
It works.
Like, it's why I was so good at, like, when I worked in nutrition, I specialized in chronic illness, and it's how I did it, and it works. And there's no like protocol I could write out because it's different for every person. It's like, it would seem random to somebody else, but like, if your whole field is, I would say the best way I could describe it is like grounded, and like, it's actually kind of similar to the color analysis thing with clothes. It's like, it resonates for your coloring, for your frequency coloring with your aura and your energy fields. There are certain foods that match that and some that don't, and heaviness and texture and frequency, and it works for people especially with digestion and like skin and all of that. So trust me, like, I get it. But it's like, you can't, and that's the value of actually working with so many people for such a long time. You're like, I haven't seen this work for this many years with this many people, and if you see that level of a trend, there's something to it. If it's not 100% whatever, but that's helpful for people to know.
For sure.
Because it gives them a jumping off point.
I mean, if I could only tell you how many times I have been right about guessing a person's blood type.
You just were.
Almost every single time. Yeah. And I don't even know that much about you. Just from the little bit that I've gleaned thus far. That happens all the time. And my clients in my programs will tell you they've seen me do it in live coaching calls. Like, enough people have seen me do it that are like, you are a witch. How did you know that? And I'm like, well, that's just, these are the trends.
You should talk about that more often.
I know. You know what it is? I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I want the battle.
I know. I totally
know the
get
battle that's going to come with it.
I totally get it.
And my personality is like, I don't think right now I want that.
Yeah.
And so, even us just having this conversation just like kind of freaks me out a little.
Yeah.
Because I understand how passionate people are about it being bogus. And I'm also okay with it because I know I've been able to help so many people with some of these principles. And even if it was placebo, right? Personally, I don't care. It worked.
Yeah.
But also, if it's placebo
is also science, though.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. It is. It is. And if it were placebo, this client that I just told you about with the stomach pain, I think I've known her now, that would have been 10 years? 10 years, she's still pain-free.
Yeah.
So if it's placebo, why would, and she still doesn't eat eggs.
I just think results are results.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? As somebody, and I come from the other side of like, as somebody who so much of my health journey has been like everything that the science says doesn't work for me and made me worse. I'm like, if there's millions of people on the internet saying this thing that makes no sense, but it works, I don't care. Like I always give the example of my mom. I had such bad, foot cramps when I was a kid. And so she put a bar of soap at the bottom of my bed and it got rid of them. And I'm like, I don't care that everyone thinks that's bullshit. Like it got rid of my cramps. Yeah. Like if it works. As humans, what's more important to me than being right is getting the results I want.
Totally.
Like at the end of the day, and I think most people are like that. Like, what do you really care about? Like that your religion is correct or that you have the life and you feel the way you want to feel.
Yeah.
I think for most people, it's results. And
you, person listening, your beliefs are the only thing that matters. So 100%. If you believe the bar of soap helps your foot cramps, that's all that matters.
100%.
That literally you can believe whatever you want. I don't care.
Yeah.
If it works for you and if your life is better. And what I'll add to that, the flip side is if you're struggling with something that you can't find a solution to, right? I would really encourage you to think outside the box and be open to maybe some things that are more on the intuitive level or more on the non-traditional level. Same for me. That's how I healed myself.
Yeah.
Through not looking at like just the traditional protocols, but turning inward, listening in, feeling like how does my body respond to this, that, or the other on an intuitive level. What's my body telling me?
Yeah.
And I always say to people, you can be right or you can be healthy and out of pain. If you want to get over your stomach pain or migraines or psoriasis or whatever it may be, and you're not finding the solution, well, why wouldn't you be open to the next ideology to test out and experiment with? You can always experiment with stuff. I think you and I are so aligned. I did the same thing. I mean, the majority of my life up until really 45, I was experimenting with every protocol out there, fitness protocols, nutrition protocols, right? I didn't dip into the real spirituality type stuff until, let's say, like 10 years ago. I tend to be very rooted in like biology, but I experimented with everything. And I feel like it's because we've experimented with everything. That is why we are good as guides, coaches, leaders, in our zone of genius, right? It's why I'm a good coach. It's why my clients get great results because I've seen what can kind of work for people and what doesn't. And some of that was my own experiment that I then tried out on other clients. And some of it was like learning from research and trial and error.
Yeah. Well, and you learn that everyone is so different.
Yeah.
And they have to be in their own experiment and like being willing to be with someone through that experiment. I'm curious when you say like, okay, so you finally turned inward and were kind of paying attention to that intuitive part. What came from that? Like, what did you figure out about yourself from that?
Oh, I don't know if I have the words for it, but you will. That my physical body is operating on a frequency or conversation around energetics way more than I ever knew. I think the majority of my life, I led with my brain, my mental ability, my powerful intellect, if you will. And it wasn't until I started paying attention to that, it's sort of like, whoa, my energetic frequency is really powerful. And the more I can let that lead me, it's really strong. And so that surprised me, I think. I don't think I knew that about myself. And now it's a fun game I play. Yeah. And this is going to be silly, but this is like a really silly, great example. So I think it was yesterday or the day before on Sunday. My husband and I went to Walmart, which is a big store. We went our separate ways because I was wandering in housewares and he was back in automotives, right? And I had that moment where I was just kind of like having so much fun wandering and looking for things. And I knew he didn't have his, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to find him, but we were going to find each other. So I was like, I'm going to go to Find My on my phone and see where he is. So Find My told me he was at the other end of the store. And then I'm like, I don't think that's where he is. My gut's telling me he's that end of the store. And I'm like, let's run an experiment and find out. So I literally just let my intuition guide me. It took me straight to the aisle exactly where he was, which was the opposite direction of where the Find My said he was, right? And I giggled to him. I was like, I just found you on my intuition. You know, and at first he thought that was like the strangest thing because it's a new concept, but he's like, you're so good. You know,
I love
so it's
it.
like now he gets a kick out of it. And that's just like such a silly example. But like in the past, I would have said, Find My is telling me you're over there. And I would have gone over there and looked for him and called him and been like, where are you? Find My says you're over in produce, right? When he wasn't, he was at the other end of the store. So things like that. It's like I've just come to learn to listen to what my body, what I'm feeling and what my body is telling me. And the more I do it, the more like magical witchy things just kind of unfold for me. And it, by the way, it just makes life a whole lot easier.
Oh my God, yeah. It's right? so much more fun.
Time saving.
Yeah.
It's fun.
It is.
It's like you avoid errors.
Oh my God, my boyfriend was laughing at me because I just ordered this random dresser. I didn't measure anything. You know, I like this one and I order it, and it's a very expensive big dresser, and I told you we just moved in, and they deliver it and he's like, it's not gonna fit, and it literally fits perfectly in this little corner, like exact. And he's like, I literally measured every part of this house to order the other furniture, and I got it wrong. He's like, of course you don't even try. And I go, you just gotta trust me, you know, like, because exactly all those little things it saves. Or I was telling Tyler, like, his process for buying furniture. It's like, we gotta research everything, and I'm like, I walk in, I'm like, this one, and he goes through his process, and 3 days later he picks the same one we started with. But I said, I could have saved you 3 days.
Exactly.
That one.
Yes, exactly. My husband's the same exact way. He's analytical and like, right. He's an engineer by brain. And so it's so true. It's like, it just saves time. It makes things easier. It makes things faster. If you're lost, if you're looking for something, it's just like you're in flow.
And it's how we're designed. I think people forget, okay, so now I look at my phone for everything and I look at my GPS, but way back when, you had to be intuitive to survive. If you lost people, you didn't have a map. You didn't have a map, right? Even before just maps, like before phones, there's maps. So before that, like, what did people have? Your frequency would know where humans were. Like, you would have to follow that and to get food. And that is how we're designed. And we've gotten so far away from that. Like, I think sometimes we lean so much into the processing system of our brains that we get dumber. Honestly, I feel like that. Because,
especially and with technology, we rely on our Siri, our internet. And
so we don't know how to listen to our own divine intelligence that's running through us, because that's going too, and we can't outsource that. And so I think I always joke about this with like food and exercise. I'm like, wow, who thought it was so hard? Who thought it would be so hard to eat and know how to move your body? And here we are in 2025. And everyone's so confused about food.
When the answer is somewhere in the middle.
I know.
It's actually not that complicated.
I know.
It's actually not. It's the extremes where things get extreme and are tricky. I totally agree. And I think I would agree with you. You know, our instinct is a survival mechanism. It's homeostasis. It literally has kept us on the earth for 1.9 million years as upright Homo sapiens, right? And so it's a part of our survival. So it makes sense that it's finely tuned. And as our lives have gotten more technology driven, busier, more distraction driven, it makes sense that we don't listen to our own map, right? Our own navigation system, because we've got so many things telling us we're right, we're wrong, or our ideas are right or wrong, and we need to listen to some other source. Yeah.
That's why it's like you come back to your body. You know, your body's wisdom. Everything. And that's what's so powerful about, like, you know, what you're talking about. It's teaching people to like actually tune in, like, how's this feeling for me? results are results. When your body's responding, it's because it's happy.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Correct.
And that's really illuminating for people. I know for me, anytime I'll feel results in my body and I'm like, that was actually so much easier than when I was doing more complicated things, it wasn't working because my body's just happy, you know, and then that helps train you to trust how your body feels. And that's really powerful.
I want to speak to something that you mentioned a while back that I think is really important, because I could imagine there might be someone listening who's new in the journey of leaning into their intuition. I remember when I was that person where I would have been like, how do you do that? I don't understand where even to begin, because it is an education to come to listen to your body and trust your instinct and all of these things, the intangible things that we're talking about, right? So you mentioned, which I thought was so insightful and powerful, and I want to bring it back to that. Part of your coming to know what works for your body was testing and tracking data, following a protocol, looking at the metrics, following a system so that you could get information about your body. And I wanted to talk about that because I am a fan of tracking what you eat to learn how it makes you feel. And at times I have women that want to jump straight to intuitive eating, which ultimately I believe is the goal for us all to intuitive eat. But it's really hard to jump straight to intuitive eating if you don't know how these different foods are impacting you. And there's a time and place for data-driven feedback, which does require tracking or monitoring or looking at calories or the amount of carbs that you're eating. And I realize for some people that could dip into obsessive compulsive or neurotic or overly, conscientious about what they're eating. But if you're able to get objective about the metrics and the data, it can so inform you about where your body is. And that's where you get to this place of, now I know, that's how I did it. I had no idea. So many of my problems were because I wasn't eating enough carbs. I mean, I had no idea until I started tracking it and looking at it and tinkering with it. Do I feel better on 40% carbs or 70% carbs? Do I feel better on heavy proteins or light proteins? How do I feel with fat? See, I feel better with less fat because that's my blood type, right? I do better with a little bit less fat because of my digestive system. And so there is something to be said for tracking data so that you can learn about yourself in an objective way so that you can get to that place of intuition on everything.
Yeah. No, I totally agree with that. And I think just looking at it physiologically, this is my experience. There's no way I could intuitively eat when my blood sugar was constantly dysregulated. I had gut dysbiosis. Like there were so many signals in my brain that were off. So I'm like, oh yeah, I think I intuitively want to eat this, big a pint of ice cream right now.
Yes.
Because my body's craving it. But that was my, candida overgrowth talking.
Totally.
So I think until you get to a regulated, like a true state of health within yourself, like only from there could I actually learn how to intuitively eat, even with like when I was full, when I actually felt satisfied.
Yes.
There was a long time I could have no sense of that, and I needed to go off of numbers to be healthy. And then eventually my body got to a regulated enough space where I could like trust it. But there's a lot of different voices going on, and I think that I think this is true with your body, is my perspective, and it's true with your psychic intuition too. You have to earn the right to trust it. Just because I'm feeling a certain way, going back to the bullshit in my space, I'm like, doesn't mean it's accurate. Like there's a lot of work that goes into accurately perceiving things intuitively. You have to clear out your own biases and your own assumptions and do your own healing work. Like, so we have to see, is our compass off from the get-go?
Yeah.
Because if it is, you got to do the work to reset it first, and then we can go from there. And I think it's super important to start with the body always. And going back to this, like, how do I trust my intuition? I always say that health is the gateway drug to spirituality, because I don't think you can accurately perceive anything intuitively until your body's in balance. I just really believe that. And I think it's a natural progression. When you feel healthy, that improves your energy and your mental focus. It's everything. Your health is everything. And from that space, it opens up your channel and your intuition. And so that's why, the health piece of what I do never goes away, because I think that's where everybody should start. Like when people are like, I want to open up my intuition, I'm like, what is your health and wellness what are those routines? Like detoxification goes into that, like strength goes into that, what you're eating, that's all energetic nourishment. And you have to start with that foundation, or you won't have an accurate perception of your intuition.
I love that you said that. Jill and I were actually talking about this on the drive down here. Yeah. And knowing that within this conversation, the origin of everything that you talk about, really could, everything we're talking about, right? And it's just so refreshing to hear you say that. I agree with you 100%. There's so much to be said for the physical 3D instrument.
It's everything.
It's everything because we are 3D physical beings, even if we are having, we're spiritual beings having a 3D human experience. I get that. Even if we are spiritual beings, but like we are still in a 3D world. If you get hit by a car, you're going to die, 100%. Right? And so there's a lot to be said for actual biology that's going on and how it does open up and really create this beautiful instrument for you to play your music.
100%.
Right?
I always say, like, people ask me, how did I open up my psychic abilities? And I'm like, my vessel is the most important thing. Like if I'm not taking care of the instrument, I can't clearly channel. Like what I eat and how I move and how I sleep, all of that is the difference between if I'm clear and I can do my work or if I'm not.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Is that why you quit drinking caffeine? You gave up caffeine. Is that it?
Yeah. I mean, it was having other very real effects on my body, like outside of the psychic part, but it was definitely, caffeine is a really interesting energy, and different types of caffeine affect your field differently. Sure. But, coffee is a frequency, like a very buzzy frequency. And if you're really grounded, it can turn some things on. But the longer you're in that buzzy frequency, your wires get crossed intuitively. And really with your intuition, there's kind of two important parts of opening it up. I mean, there's more to this, but you want your upper chakras to be open and clear. But the other most important piece actually is the more grounded you are in your body, the more intuitive you are. And so if you focus on one thing, it should be like calmness and surrender. Your body has to be in a surrendered state, right? To channel it, you're in pure receiving. And so your body needs to be relaxed. And caffeine is an upper and puts you into this it's a more masculine energy. It's a more like searching energy. It's a more mental energy. And that's the opposite of the state I have to be in to channel. To channel, I'm on the deepest level of relaxation. I'm in a trance.
Receptive.
Yeah. So it definitely affects it. Yeah. And I'm not saying like you can certainly drink coffee or caffeine and be intuitive. I'm not saying, but it's all of these nuances. And I think that also has to do with like the person's vessel, for me, just the way that I energetically interact. My field is hypersensitive to everything. And so any little upper, I'm like off the walls.
Do you know if you're a fast or slow metabolizer of caffeine?
I am a slow metabolizer.
Yeah, exactly. That's part of it too, is we all metabolize it differently, so it impacts us differently. I'm, again, no surprise, so right there with you. Yeah. And I always joke about this with my husband, like, I don't have any bad habits. I don't eat chocolate. I don't care about cookies. I don't, right? If I'm not hungry, I don't eat. Right? I don't eat for emotional reasons. Like, and by the way, this was not me in my 20s. I was like all kinds of troubles in my 20s. This is 180 degrees from where I was. But I say all the time, I'm like, the one bad habit is caffeine. I abuse caffeine without a doubt. Yeah. And lately, you just said something that really made it so much clearer for me. Lately, what I've been feeling like is when I do too much caffeine, it actually brings out a certain personality of myself that I don't think I really like anymore. Yeah. It brings out a certain kind of personality and a different part of me. I'm different on coffee than I am on matcha. I feel pretty good on matcha, but I could even abuse that. Like it's just, I have such a tendency to abuse caffeine because I love that like high masculine searching mental, all of that. I love it, right? But I know that's like not the good side of my personality.
Yeah. It's when you already have that very strong mental and like more masculine part of you online, adding more in that, it puts you off balance, right? And so you want the energy body in balance. And like, what's interesting do you mind if I?
Yes.
Yeah.
Please.
Like I but where your real power is, and even when you're talking about like your power color, right? It kind of all maps together of like in feminine energy, it's a spectrum, right? Not all feminine energy looks the same. Not all feminine energy is like soft, and like feminine energy can be fiery. There's queen energy, there's empress energy, there's executive feminine energy. There's also like the maiden. Like we have all these different archetypes and frequencies within feminine, and like your real power energy is actually more your fiery feminine, which when you have that, it's really easy to like be more in the masculine. And it's just a subtle tweak, but when you go there, it's actually a lot more grounded. Like it's a lot more down here. It's like, and that's why carbs are really also good for you. Outside of your blood type, like your vibration, the more you're in your sacral and your root, that's where like your intuition is really online. That's where your magnetism is really online. And those are your foods like your squashes and your potatoes and those hearty carbs.
Potatoes, sweet potatoes, for sure.
Yeah, like it's all that, it's all frequency.
Grounding, rooted carbs.
Yeah,
totally.
And so caffeine is going to pull you into an intense upper, which pulls you out of the vibration where you're actually in your like most powerful. It's queen energy down here.
Yeah.
That's where queen energy lives.
Yeah.
You know? And that's the thing, like for you, I think also just, energetically.
I agree. Yeah.
Feels better.
I agree. And I know that. And like I said, it's like my one bad habit. It's my lifelong addiction. I used to, when I was in my 20s, I used to giggle at, I had a friend that was in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I've had friends that are in a variety of support groups, right? And I remember being like, why don't they have a caffeine-aholics group?
They should.
It is a full-on addiction for me.
Trust me.
And I'm glad that it hasn't ever become like a drug addiction or an alcohol addiction. Thankfully, I don't have any other addictions unless exercise is one, but I'm okay with that. Right. And it's like, it is a full on like spiritual coming to Jesus for me to break this addiction.
Let me tell you, because your field is trying to tap into your channel. And it's like it's one of the artificial ways to get close to that feeling. It's like the same reason why people get addicted to ayahuasca, because they don't know how to drop in by themselves.
Interesting.
Right. So they're like obsessed with it. And so it's like, if you're, I used to struggle with binge eating. I had binge eating disorder, and I was type A, perfectionist, overachiever, always that way. And I remember my sister said something to me one time in college when I was just so depressed. I was binge eating, and she goes, you're so strict and perfect with everything. Doesn't it make sense that somewhere you've got to let loose a little? And I get emotional. Like when she said that, I was like, you're so fucking right.
Yeah.
And I realized I need to loosen up somewhere. Like my diet was perfect. My exercise was perfect. At the time I was in school, my grades are perfect. All of my internships, I'm perfect. And none of that felt hard for me. Like I felt amazing. I was perfect with like my wellness practices because I felt so good. But she was right that everything was so structured and routine. I had to have something to like rebel or let loose. And I was using food as it. And I recently came back to this because I was fully addicted to caffeine and, quit however many months ago. And I go back to when my sister said that. And I told my partner, I'm like, for me to be my clearest channel, which is what I want to be in the world. I want to be excellent at what I'm doing. I know there are lifestyle practices that I need to have, rituals, routines, and things with the way I eat, and that have to be perfect because it's so noticeable for me. And the human in me and the inner child in me is like, no, I just want to have my coffee every day. And that's the part of me that, didn't want to let go. But it was part of me was like, okay, well, what's more important to me? Like rebelling here or being an expert at my craft? And two was, what if there is another thing that's like, what am I really trying to get? Like my inner child is just looking for more play. And I was looking for something that would get me into that bigger frequency. But there was another way. And for me, it was cacao.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know if you've used cacao.
Interesting. I have, and I got away from it, and I've been thinking I should be getting back to it because
it would be so good for you.
Yeah.
Like ceremonially.
Oh yeah.
It would be so good for you.
What brand do you use?
I a couple. I can show you.
I'll
show you. I have some. Yeah, I'll send. I use Aura Cacao.
Yeah, I was using that for a while.
But I like more local. I can send you some, but that would be so good for you.
I know.
You know?
Yeah.
Because
I know.
Where the caffeine is coming from also matters, and there's something about like with a sacred cacao, it's like I'm connecting with this divine feminine frequency, and it turns on your intuition. It's a big heart opener, and it's grounding, right? Yeah. It's like that's very different than coffee bean.
Garbage coffee that I sometimes drink. Yeah.
I have a lot to say about coffee.
I know.
There is a reason.
I know.
There is a reason it's so easily accessible. It's every event you go to. There's coffee. Everywhere you go, there's free coffee. I'm like, why do you think they're pumping us with free coffee? Like, yeah, there's the mold and pesticide and all that conversation. But even when you're drinking super clean coffee, what you're energetically connected to is different. And it does affect your ability to process and intuit. Yeah. And I think there's a huge agenda with it. 100%.
Oh, well, of course. There's a lot of money behind coffee crops and farming and all of that, without a doubt. Yeah. I'll make this one super fast, but when I was in my mid-30s, I was drinking a lot of, can we mention brands? Yeah. Does that matter?
For sure.
I was drinking a lot of Starbucks. Okay. I was going to Starbucks like twice a day.
Yeah.
And it was always espresso drink. So I do like a double espresso base drink in the morning, one in the afternoon. Terrible. And at that time in my life, I was having these violent dreams. Ugh. Like I would be chased through the woods with, a militia with machetes. Like violent dreams. And something happened. I got very sick. It made me go off of coffee. I quit drinking coffee for a period of time. And that's when I switched over to teas. I'm also a huge fan of green tea. And so I went off on this journey towards tea for a long time, maybe even like a year. And then, of course, I found my way back to Starbucks. And the dreams came back. Yeah. And I hadn't realized they had stopped until they came back. And I was like, it's the Starbucks coffee.
100%.
Was causing these violent dreams. And so for a long time, I quit drinking Starbucks coffee, right? This is going to sound so weird and woo.
No.
For a long time, I wasn't drinking Starbucks coffee. Then this past year, we've had a lot of change in our life. We moved. We're living in a more rural area. Started drinking Starbucks coffee again at home. And my violent dreams are back.
I'm not
Starbucks
surprised.
is going to be like, Holly Perkins, we're coming after you.
It's okay. I think everyone's against that. But yeah.
And maybe it's not the Starbucks coffee. Maybe it's just the espresso. But still, I've been like.
Coffee in general can do that for people. Yeah. And because again, it's all frequency. And I'll tell you, like with my dreams, dreams is a whole topic, but it's super connected to the frequencies you're consuming because of how that opens up your field. And when you're asleep, you're going into the astral in random places. Okay. And if you're having the Starbucks coffee, what that does to what you're plugged into is it opens it up to all these weird places in the astral. And that can happen with sugar. That can happen with
alcohol.
Yeah, it can happen. Yeah, for sure. Anything. And it's different for every person. Like sugar is worse for me than alcohol energetically. Physiologically is another. But like energetically, it is worse for me. With the dreams I'll have and things like that, but it's a very real thing, and it's good that you notice it,
Yeah.
But
doing something about it is my biggest challenge right now. I'm aware of it at least, which is great. But I always love the substitution method, and that's the time that the only time it's ever worked for me when I've had to break a habit is when I've done a substitution. And so I was thrilled to see your Dandy Blend because I was like, oh, I forgot about Dandy Blend. I love it. Yeah, that got me off coffee one time. And I love the cacao suggestion.
Try the cacao.
I'm going to do that. Do you ever put them together?
I don't. Okay. I don't because I'm just a cacao purist if I'm having cacao. But
just with water, I'm assuming, like a proper ceremonial.
Yeah. Or no, I'll put coconut milk in it or I'll do like nut milk or something. Okay. But I do mostly water. Okay. I like bitter. You know?
I do too.
So yeah, I make it different every time. But the Dandy Blend, I like if I want like the taste of a latte. Yeah. Because it will taste like a latte if you put like
milk,
the right milk in it. But and then cacao is more if I'm like I can tell what I'm actually looking for is to be more connected to something else, then I'll do the cacao for that. So I use them for different reasons.
I'm going to do it.
Yeah, you should do it. Try it.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
I'm going to.
And I told myself when I was like, I can have as much as I want. I'll have like 3 Dandy Blend lattes a day. But I'm like, if it's keeping me away from coffee, it doesn't matter because I'm just getting off.
Well, and Dandy Blend's good for you.
Yeah.
Dandelion is so good for you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So try it.
I love that. I'm going to.
Yeah. Substitution. I mean, I'm sure you see that with just food and even exercise for people all the time when people are like addicted to things, and you just got to swap it out. Something that makes you feel better. Oh my God, this is so fun. I could talk to you forever.
I know, forever.
Oh my God, you have to come back.
I will.
Okay, tell everyone where they can connect with you, and you have your new book coming out next year.
Yes, my book won't be out until 2026. Okay. It's called Muscle and Bone. There will be a big hurrah, so keep your eyes open for it. It is a book for every woman, very specifically about why your musculoskeletal system is everything and informs so much about your health now, but also how well you're going to age. My motivation is really to help all people, but women in particular, stay in the game of life and out of the rocking chair as you get older, so that you can really love the life that you're in at whatever age you are. And my book is one part physiology and science, but it's also my protocols for nutrition and strength training to improve both muscle mass and bone health. We didn't talk about bone health today. And then I would say, in terms of where to find me until then, the Holly Perkins Health Podcast. I put out a new episode every week, and I'm on social media at Holly Perkins. And at one point earlier today, we talked about my Strong Muscle and Bone assessment. That's hollyperkins.com/quiz, which is a great assessment for you to figure out if your habits are helping you preserve the muscle that you have and or build the muscle that you want. And it also does a check in terms of if your habits are supporting good bone health for both bone mass, strength, and density, which are actually 3 different things.
Okay, well, you have to come back and we can talk about that. Come back when it comes out.
Okay.
And then if people want to train with you, do you take clients? Do you have online programs? Like,
for the most part, I'm doing group cohort-based programs at this time.
Awesome.
And my most popular program right now is called the Body Composition Project. And it's very specifically a comprehensive coaching program to improve your body composition so that you are at least 70% lean muscle mass, because that is that tipping point where everything improves, everything about you. Your risk of disease goes down, but energy goes up, metabolic health goes up, you feel better if you want to get leaner. So it really is not just a fitness application, but I'm really about, let's look at these metrics and these numbers of your body composition. So for those who are wanting some guidance around their strength training or their cardio, I do have a resource that's great. It's a $97 program, but for your listeners, totally free. That's hollyperkins.com/offer, OFFER. It's a 6-week strength and cardio program that it's amazing. In and of itself, it's a program to help you improve both your strength training and your cardio.
Amazing. Okay, we will put everything in the show notes. People are going to love this. You have to come back.
I would love to.
This has been amazing.
Yeah,
thank you
so
much.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much.
Oh my God,
we're
so
aligned and connected.
I know.
And it's so fun.
I know.
So fun.
I literally love it. Thank you.